So for this ice mesh growing on top of the gun, we go back to the top where we have the gun, where I scale it down, then remesh the gun. Then I added a time shift in the first frame. And then here I'm using this setup, which is a group, a wrangle, to create the temperature attribute and pyro sword spread. I want to show you where I got it. Type spread, you're gonna see this pyro configure spreading fire. This is a good setup to easily create masks that are growing. This is made for fire and smoke, but out of this configuration I'm only keeping the group, the attribute wrangler, and the pyro source spread. Everything else I just deleted. Now here, after the time shift, I had my group, I selected the barrel and all that, nothing fancy. Temperature attribute with the value of 1 based on that hot group. And then with the pyro spread, I'm gonna use the temperature, which is this, and I'm going to then run this simulation. You can change the values in the pyro source spread here. You have fuel, combustion, temperature. What it's doing for you is that it's creating a mask that will behave like spreading fire, you know. We're gonna use this node to recreate that spreading effects. You have different values that you can play with, the rate, the cooling, all of these. I just tried to keep it simple, but you can play with all of these different values to get different results. So when you're satisfied with the mask that you like, you will notice that after applying a blast, which is the next step, we're gonna blast points based on the temperature attribute. And this, what you're gonna get at the end is only the geometry where the mask is applied. So you're gonna see the gun building up. So the next step is actually really easy and it's very similar to what we did with the bullets. In this case, what I'm doing, and I want you to look at my screen, my setup, and see that all I'm doing is stacking different layers of noise, or different layers, let's say. So for example, right now I made this attribute noise with the CD attribute, 0 center, and then I put some value, doesn't matter what is the value. Then I blast the points using the CD, and then I deform it again to get an interesting shape, let's say. And it might look crappy right now, but it will make sense later. And then I do the same again. This time I make a higher frequency noise, so it's smaller bits. And then I repeat the same steps: noise, blast points, and then deform the resulting geometry. And when I combine this and I convert this into BDB, you will see that it will go from a flat surface to a noisy, icy shape. In this case, instead of convert to BDB, I'm using BDB from particles, because the reason is that the resulting geometry, it doesn't have a volume. It's just like one flat geometry. That's why I cannot go directly to convert to BDB, but I can do it from particle, from the points. When I take down the voxel size and the point radius scale, you will have something like this. These particular values work for me because of the scale of my geometry. So after converting the particles into BDB, I will smooth them, and here you are free to smooth as much as you want, and then convert back to geometry. And then you will get something like this. And see, after catching, you will see this like geometry growing. And the idea is that you stack again different layers of geometry with different shapes until you are satisfied and you can see that it actually looks like ice. For the extra layers, I decided to try something different. I'm using a triplanar displays where it's gonna ask you to get like a height map or displacement map. So I went to ChatGPT and tried to create something that looked like ice. I just prompted like make a height map, an image 101 4K, and I got this. So I'm using this as to project it on the geometry and displace it. Yeah, so I just play with the values to get like an interesting shape. In this case, I'm gonna do what I'm doing different is that instead of BDB from particles, I'm using a thickened sub to get some volume in the geometry. And from this, I am converting this geometry into BDB. The good thing about this method is that you're gonna get like a completely thick layer, and in combination with the other scatter layer, with the previous layer, I think they both work good together. So again, it's just a matter of testing this. But it's the same principle. So the only difference here is that I'm using a height map to deform the geometry and then make it thicker so I get some volume, and then convert that into BDB and catch it again, and then try. And you do this until you get the shape that you are looking for. But this is the core of this procedure to then get this something similar to this. On the side, from this guy, this one here, I decided to add some filaments like spikes. It took me some time, like a couple of hours, to figure out a good way here. And this is, now I'm getting into a territory where I'm like, okay, this is made for this specific amount of frames. Like, it's only gonna work there, because I'm adding a time shift on frame 1, and on this one frame, the last frame where I have the whole thing. And on this one, I want to add, first of all, paint density with an attribute paint. Just call it density here. Then added some normals to points, and then with the same node that I did, the same attribute bob that I did before to control the normal, I'm gonna scatter some points based on the density, and I'm gonna add the p scale. So basically it's the same setup that I use here. Add some lines, copy to the points. It's gonna look this crazy. Could be nice to find a better way to control the normal, but this is okay. Add a sweep, and you're gonna get this crazy stuff. Make it even worse. And I will add that to, let's say, amount of layers that I'm stacking here. Here I'm stacking everything that is gonna grow on the weapon to later catch this. The only thing here is that the carve for these guys, as I was saying, this is animated on this frame range from 2 to 55. So at the beginning. And then on this side, which is the same, by the way, the same setup, but maybe a little bit tweaks here and there, it's gonna work later, because here I painted the density attribute on these areas. The time shift in the last frame, so I have the whole thing. Why do I use a time shift? Because if I don't do it and I go directly to paint this attribute, the mask is gonna break frame by frame, because as this is growing, the mesh is growing, it's changing the position of the points, so the paint attribute will break. This is why I'm doing this time shift. And then this is why I went through for this procedure. Like, okay, I'm just gonna paint some density. I added some noise to that density, copy the points, and then I know that it's just gonna start growing on those area. And there you go. Then all of this layer, I put it into one merge, because this is one thing. This is another thing, like the bullets is another thing. I catch all of this. Here's the gun with the different layers put together. Yep. And that's pretty much it. And now we have all the different parts of this. So this second main effect, these two effects together. Now, because of when I did this first, I wasn't really thinking on using a gun and render a gun and all that. I was gonna render like as a standalone piece. I decided to bring a gun just to do a nice render, so I added this transform and move and scale down the effect so it's placed in front of the gun. I still feel like this area here should be better, like work on this better. Also, keep in mind that in the film, the gun has an animation, like it breaks. See, look at this. So the gun at the beginning, it's like normal gun, and then after the explosion, it breaks. So this, animation gives you something extra and to work with to add like eyes coming out of the broken gun. I don't have that, so I just place it there, like keep it simple. I have this little setup here that I wanted to show you that it's interesting. It's a way to modify this guy, this whole thing. Let's say you don't want to scale down the circle because then you have to recatch. It takes a lot of time in your computer, so you can use a lattice. It's called lattice deform. When you place it, you need to place the geometry you want to deform, which is the first, and then in the second input you need a bound, which will be your guide to deform, and then below an edit to edit that bound. You see here I took this bound. By the way, you have to press the division, give it some division, and then with the edit I scale down this so I could scale down this area. This is how it looked before and after. And this is a cool way to edit mesh, something that you have simulated and you don't want to go back. I did not end up using it because, but I then left this thing here for you. And this is it. This is how I approach this effect. I then later took all of these nulls into Solaris, of course, and because I use grid market, I have to prepare this setup in a special way. For example, I use sub import, then inside, and then I point at the nulls, like the out ice bullet, like this is the ice bullet, this is the bullet, the weapon, the ice weapon around the weapon, the ice around the weapon, and then I add a layer save path to create an USD file from each one of these. It's something that is required for grid market. I added a material library, a material linker. I like to use material linker. It's much easier to add material, because once you have created materials inside the library, in the material linker you will have them here, and then you can just drag them on top of the geometry that you want to use it, just like that. Boom. In the material, let's quickly look. So you have the eyes around the weapon, these guys here, metal for the bullets, and then the weapon textures. For the eyes look, I play around with the transmission, subsurface, emission. It's pretty much the same for both the eyes on the gun and the bullet, the ice frozen bullets. It's the same. Just play around with the transmissions, subsurface, emission. If this is the right way or not, I probably guess it's not, but it was a quick way to get a similar look. I'm not saying this is how it should be done. Somebody who worked in lookdev will probably disagree and agree that it should be done differently. Then back to the metal, the bullets is just one in metalness, a little bit down with the roughness and gray color. And then the weapon, I added some its respective the respective materials, like the texture, like the metallic, and so on. I did add some extra stuff that I can show you here very quick. The mask that I did here, that I was talking about earlier, it's probably not gonna be able. I'm not gonna be able to see it. I don't know why it does that, but here. This mask. The purpose of this mask is to add like a extra layer of frozen. So this is going faster than the mesh, and it's turning the color of the weapon white or blue. So you can see here how it's affecting that area. And it's an attribute that I created here in subs, right? In here. How do I bring this into stage? Well, in the material library here in the Karma material builder, there is something called where is it? Here. MTLX geometry property value. There's two of these. If I type property, there is property value and property value uniform. I use property value. Here I will type the mask and say what kind of attribute it is. In this case, a vector 3 because it's a color. Maybe work as a float. Yeah, it does the same because it's black. Let's just leave it as a float. I tried to add some noise, but I don't think this is doing much. So, but here is where I'm adding the color. I use ramp const, so it gives me this ramp to put the color. I added like a silver to black color, multiply those two. This again, this is, I don't think it's doing much. But then with the material mix, MTLX mix, I'm mixing the texture that I got from the geometry, from the asset, and this color, then multiply by, well, not multiply, but mix with the mask, the attribute that I created. And this ramp is just to control a bit the mask, how much it would affect. This is how I blend it together, so this color is on top in this area, or blended together in this area. And that was it. I did the same material mix, MTLX, the same mix for the metalness and with the same attribute, just to reduce the amount of metalness on that area, because it was looking weird, like a metallic blue. So I multiply it by 0.5 with a constant, and then it just to turn down a little bit the metalness on the frozen, and quote, frozen area. And that was it. Also, keep in mind the normal, and then you have the displacement. I have to multiply like almost to non-existent because it was too much. And yeah, those are the materials. Added some lights. The light setup is that, like a warm light, cold, fill, merge them, Karma settings. I did play around with this. Yeah, nothing fancy. I catch my USD and then submit to Grid Market. If you want a tutorial how to use Grid Market, please let me know, and then I can put it in the list of tutorials to do. Let's share some knowledge. You can also come to my Discord channel and we can talk about it there. I would love to see if you manage to render something like this. Please show it to me. I would love to see that. I know it's a very brief tutorial compared to the others, but that's the whole point, to make this quick tutorial based on comment requests. So thank you very much, and please, as always, like and subscribe, and thank you for all the amazing comments. See you next time.